On this week's podcast, we'll be talking about Times, the new album by Wolfgang Flür, who's worked again with his collaborator Peter Duggal, someone he's worked with since 2015. Now, the album is a follow-up to Magazine 1, and it features collaborations with the German techno duo U96, who I interviewed the other week, Boris of Yellow, Thomas Vangarde, formerly of Daft Punk, Juan Atkins, Anthony Rother, Emil Schult, who was a former Kraftwerk collaborator, and Peter Hook, of course, New Order, alongside a few more that we'll mention during the interview.
I think that was also with Kraftwerk not the case that they had such a good plan of preparation for an album.
When I was growing up and I heard the early Kraftwerk records and the early German electronic records, and there was just something uniquely, maybe the otherworldliness of not knowing what the words were, added to it.
Landen, überall, überall.
That pure distance between the words and the pronunciation and the harshness of the words really worked.
Not responsible for anything. So many famous artists have no problem to working with the former drummer boy of Kraftwerk, you know. Like in a circus, we are artists. I'm just only the director who knows who has these or that talent.
Now, don't forget to subscribe or follow this podcast series. There's a great interview with Wolfgang, actually, around that Magazine 1 launch. And it's really worth watching because he does talk a lot about Kraftwerk during that interview. Now, just sit back, listen and enjoy the interview with Wolfgang Flür and Peter Duggal. So first of all, welcome to both of you. Well, it's a great pleasure, Wolfgang, obviously, to see you again. And Peter Duggal, the first time we've actually met, let's say, face-to-face over the internet. First of all, congratulations on the album Times, which I want to get to a lot during this interview. But because I've interviewed Wolfgang before and I've talked about his past, I wanted to start a little bit with Peter. Before I talked to Wolfgang about his post-World War childhood and his staunch pacifism, which came from that era. But for you, Peter, you're the son of Indian immigrants who came to Britain, to Handsworth in Birmingham, and you were born in 72 and brought up there. And, I remember I was sort of 13 in 72, so sort of a generation back, really. But I remember the 80s or 79 when Thatcher came to power, when you would have been a young kid. And of course, Handsworth was a centre which was, we were all affected by Thatcher's policies, but the riots were in London, Liverpool, they were in Birmingham, they were in Handsworth. And I just wondered what it was like for you growing up at that time.
It was very interesting, but, it was like you said, it was the Thatcher era. So it was kind of, everyone was uniting together, and all the music, all the art, all the comedy was starting to become a bit more alternative and a bit more interesting and a bit more rebellious. So in that sense, it was a really great time creatively to be growing up. So I've got older siblings, 5 older siblings, and so there was a lot of punk, there was a lot of reggae, there was a lot of everything in the house, and obviously a lot of Indian music from my parents. So a real mix of things. But it was also coincidental with the time when machines and technology started making an appearance, and I was really captivated by these things because they were a way of escaping for me, and like once the music and the computers and the technology combined, it was like, you can go anywhere you want in the world with this little computer in front of you and some headphones on. It was a magical thing to me. But yeah, Handsworth had a lot of, as you said, Handsworth, Toxteth, Tottenham, where all the major riots were. So my father actually had a shop 2 doors away from the post office, which was the epicenter of the riots, and that got burnt down, and the 2 brothers sadly died there. So we were right in the middle of that. We lived in Lozells at that time as well, which is East Handsworth, which is technically where it was all happening.
You just said that computers provided an escape. Did you feel, as the son of Indian immigrants, in a society which was really sort of splitting in a way during that era because of Thatcher, did you feel like an outsider?
I did, yeah, but I mean, we weren't particularly wealthy either, to to put it lightly. So we lived in a very small house, and there were a lot of us. There were six kids, my mum and dad, my grandmother, and a lodger. And we only had three bedrooms, so it was that sense of escape was kind of really important for me. I had to find my own little world to get away from the chaos of it all. But I did, in terms of being an outsider, yeah, I mean, I always felt like I never really was in either camp, because there was a huge amount of racism as well. I mean, the Rivers of Blood speech, Enoch Pell was just down the road in the Midland Hotel, and we used to get really unsavory things happening, and daubed on the walls, and really unsavory pamphlets coming through the door from the Conservative Party at the time, saying you're pretty much not that welcome. So we felt like outsiders, but we gained a lot of strength through that as well. So whilst, I mean, I was a bit peculiar in that I was never really accepted I never felt a strong part of the Indian community because they considered me to be not one of them. And obviously the other community didn't really consider me one of them either. But my dad was always a little bit rebellious and a bit anti-traditionalist, shall we say. So I kind of always thankful for that.
I find, that's really fascinating what you talk about and the way that you didn't feel that you fitted in. I just wondered, Wolfgang, hearing those experiences, and obviously you know Peter a lot better than I do, and you know much more about his life than I do. But I wondered whether, even with different generations, there's something about those background and experiences which connects you and what that is.
At first, it is our love to music. It is our personalities, our characters. We are humanists, pacifists, and I love his family, his children, and it's a thing of the same chemistry which we both have from the first few we had when he invited me in 2015 for a festival which they run in Hampton Bridge, where he lives, the wonderful small town in London, in England. And we met the festival. He picked me up at Leeds Bradford Airport, and we had 50 minutes in his car until he brought us to the hotel that they booked in the middle of the town. When we stepped out of the car, we were friends. We were like brothers. It was unbelievable how fast we came into a very intimate speech, and it was so funny. We laughed a lot, and he told me that he's also a musician. I thought he's only my booker, my driver, and he was so much more. I couldn't have the range. What came out of that when he gave me a CD and he gave me a link to his SoundCloud. That was the most important thing when I heard his first soundscapes, what he published on SoundCloud. There were some very good tracks, which was film music to me. Opened my heart. I saw things happening there. I mean, I need a scene. It's like something to inspire me, and it inspired me a lot. And there was this first track we did together. It was already called Birmingham, and I asked him why. And he said it's an homage on my hometown where I was born, and I think that's a good reason. Can we not make a pop song from it? There was no vocals in, and there was not the regular pop song structure in, But we did that and started for the first track. We recorded, and we learned more and more about ourselves, how our music would be arranged and produced, how his melodies and his beautiful arpeggios, that's the arpeggiator king, I call him always. I don't know anyone else who does so good arpeggios for the background, for the harmonies, And that was something what I was missing. I'm not so good in that. And it was immediately something which fitted so well that we came in some songs pretty fast to a result, So your question, back to the question, that is what we find. If some men find that in a bar and they drink something together, they can come easier to be a friend or to get in contact with a man than women can do that. So that's a thing between men functions better than between women.
How do you remember it? Because it must have been like meeting a hero in terms, musical hero because of Kraftwerk that you would have listened to when you were younger, and that would have influenced you. So how for you was it to meet Wolfgang, and how was that moment when he contacted you and then you worked on the first track?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like Wolfgang explained, really. It was obviously there was some trepidation, and obviously Kraftwerk were an important band to me when I was younger, and Computer World's still one of my favorite records of that era. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously it was quite interesting for the first while because, but we got on so well so quickly. It almost became, that initial thing of, oh, it's Wolfgang from Kraftwerk. It wasn't a huge thing for me really. It was all about how warm and lovely he was as a person, and Zuhal, his wife. So we got on really, really well, really, really quickly, and yeah, it's a very treasured thing. So, but yeah, at the start, it was obviously slightly strange picking Wolfgang up from Leeds Bradford Airport, but you know, it didn't. By the time we got back to Hebden Bridge, 45 minutes later, I think we'd been laughing for about 40 minutes, and it was good. It was really good.
How quickly did you get to the point of understanding what each of your roles or defining the roles within the musical framework? How quickly did you get to that point, and what are they?
That's really important because we didn't really have to think about it, and
Correct.
that's why we ended up writing so much together. We didn't decide to write music together. We just ended up doing it because we both love writing music and we both like each other's music and we both like each other. So it was just a natural thing. We started working together and there's no effort involved on the side of creativity. We both know what we bring to the table and both how we inspire each other and which bits of what I do.
But we didn't know that before. We had to find that out during working.
Mm,
Nothing was planned for to release something. It was just for fun. It was so nice, and we did not talk about roles who
mm,
everyone had. Each involved person, in this case two. It's easy to work as a couple, and we found out very 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 quickly whose strength is of each one, in the music.
mm,
So giving a head, let us say a theme that comes mostly from me, and then we decide how we go on. Mostly is that lyrics were written. Also, mostly by me, but often with help from Peter, and then the melodies develop from that immediately. I have the melody for singing or something. What is the follower melody after a strophe or after a verse? And Peter makes the best backings thinkable. And he's so good with bass and even better with constructing a drum line. He's much better in constructing that. I was a live drummer, so I leave it to him, and he knows how I would do that on drumming. Anyway, that is how we got together over the years. So it was not in a week.
Mm,
And we work together now since 9 years, nearly 10.
right.
So from the very first point, and we did so many tracks, and some of them were so massive work. Some tracks took us months or years even. Not that meant that we worked every day on a track. Sometimes we had to lay it aside and and restart it or followed it a month or 2 months later on when we find solutions for something which did not work in the first site. But
mm.
that's how we
Yeah.
came together, at least.
Yeah, that's inspiration. Yeah, it was a very natural thing, and it's also natural the way we don't force it. When you have to make a huge effort, it's when you're doing something like this, it's actually quite tedious. So it's actually nice when you meet someone and it just flows.
So let's get on to times. And the first question is an obvious question that probably everyone has asked, but it was going to be called Magazine 2, and it's called Times. Why?
There is not an important reason. I mean, It was planned during the time when the Corona epidemic was, when we had the first album done. We thought we have so much more tracks that we can make a second album because they didn't fit on one. And we had that always in our minds. That was a working title, Magazine 2, and make it as a series, maybe at least. But you know, we are artists. We have every day other things in our head and our heart. Yeah, I mean, it was also spoken with my label manager, Barnaby Ashton Bullock, who always gives me good advice. And so he is not bound to Cherry Red. He's a freelancer, so he can give me good advice. Also tried with other record companies and so, but at least I kept it with that label. But he said to me, if we would offer it to another record company or a major even, I would recommend that at least take another title, that we have a complete new album. Then they could think, if they get now the magazine too, why is Wolfgang changing from them? Maybe it did not work very well. Now they try it with us, you know, the series, the second one. And that was a very good thinking. And I understood completely what he meant and said, okay, then we have to find a new title. That was a difficult thing. So it took a whole drunken night with us in some bars in Düsseldorf. I took over all my friends and also especially my graphic designer, Markus Luigs. And he's one of the best. I call him my style police. And he is good giving advice since 23 years. So I know him as long as my wife, because she made me the contact with him. And she knew him earlier. And Markus makes the graphic design of the albums, of my books, and makes all the necessary photos. And he was with us in that night, and we needed him and said, we have to find a title. And we had some nice dinner anywhere. And then we got a nice row of different bars with a lot of drinks. And it was, I think, in the last bar of the Hyatt Hotel in the Media Harbor, we said, this is the last cocktail we have because it must be stopped now. So always, mostly, or often like that, in the last minute, you know, he cracked with his fist on the table and said, it's times, my friends, it's times. And I thought he meant it is time to go. It was completely wrong. He said, no, it's times, that's your title. Because it is still in the row of something which has to do with the media, with a magazine. Times is also a magazine, you know, and big cities, capital cities have their times. There is also, I think, Jerusalem Times, there is a London Times, there is the New York Times, and we make our own times. And that has to do with the same, you leaf through the pages as the magazine one, and every page has another title and another theme. That was done at that moment. And we had a last couple of drinks and then we went, you know. That was the reason.
I mean, I love the cover because it's particularly interesting, the cover that Markus has done, because it's got this monochromatic image of a young Wolfgang seated atop this plinth or a pedestal.
This pole it's on the head of a snake. I come to that later. It's unfortunately not on the album, but on the CD, it's the whole Rhine snake. It's called. It's a monument from steel, sitting on top of it. And that was also his idea to personalize the whole graphic design of that album because of times, the title, to bring something from my younger age as a child, and then the teenage time, my amateur time, that all has to show that I'm always on any stage and always making music as a drummer or a singer later. In former times and now again. So he wanted to spread that on the whole album with hundreds of my photos. He made a puzzle like that, or on the inner sleeves of the album. So he made it very well, and he captured that so good. That's why he's my style police.
So listen, I'm going to ask you both, because I went into ChatGPT and I asked, what does this cover represent? Okay, so this is what ChatGPT came up with. This stark imagery, combined with the use of grayscale tones and the striking red text, suggests a deliberate focus on the passage of time and Flür's enduring presence in the electronic music landscape. So what do you both feel that the cover represents?
Yeah, ask Peter. I mean, I know it,
Yeah.
but Peter didn't see that also. But on the good thing is, but I can just add on the CD in the inner sleeve, asked Peter also, give me a photo from you in the same age when I was 9 or 10. And he sent me some of them, and I immediately pointed on one that this is the right one. You look exactly like Michael Jackson. Then it's really true. I don't know why, but it's so funny. And so he's also with a child in the same size and the same in the inner booklet. Not on the album, on the vinyl album. So we had this idea later on, and I found it important that we have something more from him also.
Yeah, I think that contrast as well between it's very human, and a lot of the music is very human, even though there are a lot of electronics in there. I think what ChatGPT came out with is actually pretty good, really. I mean, it's a nice way of looking at it and fairly accurate, in my view.
Yeah, it's not normally accurate. So
No, not always accurate.
I know.
It is on this occasion.
Exactly. Now, Times features this sort of incredible lineup of collaborators from U96, Boris Blank of Yellow, Thomas Vangarde, of course, Bangalter, Daft Punk, Juan Atkins, Anthony Rother, Emil Schult, and Peter Hook. So, I mean, I think this is an amazing array of people, all in an area of electronic music, but all in sort of different styles and different eras in a way. But I want to start with U96 because you've had a long, in a sense, a long collaboration with U96 now, over a number of years. And there are 3 tracks on the album: Planet in Fever, which is with Emil Schult, Sexerciser, and HILDEBRANDLIED. Let's start with Planet Fever. What does this track actually mean to you, Wolfgang?
Yeah, actually, this was a very, very old idea. I recorded that already in 1993. Can you believe that? And also the lyrics were written with Emil Schult together. We both sat there in a very hot summer already in 1993. We had such hot a period, more than 1 or 3, a couple of years. And we sat together and said, I want to write a song about that. And I was working in another little studio in Düsseldorf from Rheingold. And I was not so happy with the result. It was not electronic enough. I always need a producer on my side. And but that was the start, and I have that already in my cupboard. It's completely different. We had also an opera singer, a female opera singer inside. Planet and Fever, Planet and Fever. It was very dramatic singing, But anyway, since that time, it is in my brain to make it in a better style, more dramatic. And since I know Hajo Leverance from U96, the Hamburg man, with his partner, Ingo Kraus, they sent me some backings for any collaboration on their album. And I had some of them, which I have chosen from all that what they sent me. It was not all my style, but some of them had a very strong and dramatic structure. It was very helping me, especially that was the first, I think, for the theme of today, when the planet is in fever and everything is burning, especially in America, what happened in Los Angeles. And so when we see the development of our humanity and our civilization, we make so much kaputt, as we say in Germany, that we look not back, not forward. Everyone lives his life, and we don't do enough. So that's also why I wrote Global Youth. For the youth of today, it's an homage on the youth. They do much more. They are so strong than I don't know another generation than the youth of today. Everywhere in the world, they do much more for rescuing their future, and that clips, they glue very good together, Planet in Fever and Global Youth. It's an homage to our planet, to planet Earth, and to the global youth. So it was important to me because I always go out. I love the nature, and I love being there, and I don't want to destroy. And we live very healthy here today in our home, my wife and me, and we think about all the time about the nature and the wonderful forests we have here around. We are romantic, and me more than my wife, but that's normal. And I think that was so important. So I worked the lyrics a little bit over to bring it more to the taste of the time, and included this little narration in of the news talker. That's me, and you know whom I'm talking about. This guy said fake news, fake news. Unfortunately, we have this guy again in America, and he thinks still that is all fake news. The scientists are liars, Crazy guy, crazy guy. Don't know what that comes out of him the next 4 years. Incredible. However, that is my answer on your question. Why Planet in Fever? It's a big, big warning.
During Magazine One, you were working over the net. And I presume on this album, you had the same sort of process.
Planet in Fever was an older track, and then obviously Wolfgang reworked it with U96, and I find it very beautiful. But just to answer your question on, it's a good thing, really. The way we work on the web. I mean, we work in asynchronously. So, I mean, I think if you're naturally inclined to be fairly solitary anyway, historically, with the way that you write music or produce art, it's a good way to work because there's no. You might not both be aligned if you're in the same room at the same time. You know, one of you might be feeling inspired and one might not. So this way you can capture all the great ideas of the day that we both have, and then we can share them, So Wolfgang might have a melody idea in the middle of the night and record it, and I might have the same, might have an idea for something. I'll wake up and I'll write it down, and that those kind of moments of magic, they don't necessarily always happen when you're on a scheduled routine in the studio. So I regard it as a real advantageous thing, the internet, and being able to work like that. Not just in terms of being able to work from a distance with each other, but also to just distort the whole time part of things. I think it really works for us.
Talking about Emil Schult, because he had a collaborative period with Kraftwerk and co-wrote a number of tracks. I think Computer Love, The Model, Computer World were amongst them. And you talked to me last time, Wolfgang, about when you resurrected the contact with him. So for you, how important has it been to have resurrected that contact with Emil, and in a sense, put the past behind you? Because I think one of the beauties of this album is somehow you've now taken over the modern legacy of Kraftwerk completely. You've gone from being in Kraftwerk, being sort of pushed out, having a period of isolation, coming back, and now somehow it feels like you are the main legacy of that band because Kraftwerk don't really make music anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's their thing. I don't want to discuss that. Very short, I said, I think it is no more necessary. They did enough good music, and the people like it. The fans go there, and the giant projections and this other way how they project their music and show it is completely different. It's another thing. So it is very good for the visuals. I think so too. And I can believe in the night when all the castles are projected with all this huge laser cannons. And so, I mean, that is always reproduction, and Autobahn, 50 years playing Autobahn would not be my thing, and I'm very happy that I got the jump away from them then when it was necessary. It was not my delight leaving them, believe me, but it was a necessary thing because nothing more, as you said, happened since then. And Carl did the same 2 years later. But that's enough spoken about. But with Emil Schult, when I visited him in one of his exhibitions 3 years ago, it was a wonderful new giving hands, and he told me that he also left Kraftwerk and Ralf Hütter to work with them anymore. there was something happening what made him unhappy and a bit sad. And he said, it's no more possible. I can understand Florian meanwhile very well, that he left the band and got ill at least. So from any reason, I don't know everything, but I have my ideas what happened there. But having Schult back working with me made me very proud and happy, you know. So I forgot everything from the past. We had some discussions since the book was out, my autobiography, and we had they took me to the judge, and he said some things which made me not so happy. But you know, over the years, I have my a wise old position that belongs to my age of 77, and I can forget and I can forgive, of course, because I know the more important things in an artist. And we had so many years we lived together, Emil and me, that was much more important than the some days of not so nice things in Kraftwerk times when I left them. But I can always give someone a second chance, and this friendship went on, I think. I hope so. So I visited him sometimes in his studio in Viersen, and it's a wonderful big studio, much bigger than it was then when he was with Kraftwerk, because he can, yeah, he can rent. He has more money, maybe just can own a big studio and a house, has children, 3 of them meanwhile. And wonderful children. One is more beautiful than the other. All girls, you know, and I like them so much. And yeah, then I asked him. We were just working on a track. I'd called it in the start the 4-tone track. We had only 4 tones, which I was given by another friend of mine. And I like these 4 tones, only these 4 tones. Da 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 da. In fact, it's only 3 because it goes back to the first. And I gave it to Peter and said, "Can you give me to this electronic that was separated, these tones? Can you make me a backing for them, that I have an idea, and we try the pitch for my singing, the tonality, you know." And we had that already, and that was already so good. And then it was just a year ago, I played a show of MUSIK SOLDAT in Zurich. And the organizer was friendly with Boris Blank, and he told me, "We have invited you for lunch tomorrow at the famous Krughalle in Zurich. You must go there when you want, if you don't know it. It's special. It's a museum, at least, with a restaurant, and is extremely expensive for simple eat. But he was announced to be with us, the Boris, and he didn't come. He called us in the morning, and it had a big cough. The whole Swiss had a cough. Everyone coughed. So I said, "I don't want to infect you. So when you're back in Düsseldorf, maybe we have a call about, I want to talk with you, and you are my heroes. We love your music so much." And I said, "Me too." And I heard already some of his new tracks, not with Yellow, but with Boris Blank. He's a wonderful sound producer. So, and the 2 tracks which I've heard from the promoter who knew him on the train where we have been were wonderful. And I said, "Anything like this, may I have your record?" And of course, I said, "I sent you one when it's out. I'm just in the promotional area and do so many Zoom interviews as we just now do." He knows what is the work after recording, after releasing. Then comes the real work, you know. And he said, "Yeah, Wolfgang, the crazy thing is, I have heard you were interested to working with me something. What could it be then?" And I said, "We are just working on a track which has 4 tones. Can I have these 4 tones?" I said, I can send you 3 objects of that track. It's just the backing. It's just these, what Peter had produced. It's a harmony with arpeggios inside, arpeggiated tones. And it's these 4 tones you have, and my spoken words of global youth. You can use it for to make a vocoder from it or anything else. And these 3 elements, we need something inside of this track which is a B part or a C part. I call the middle part, which I like to go far away from the track up into the sky and any atmosphere to change the whole thing into anything else. It can maybe also change the tonality and come back to go straight into the verse or into the chorus. This is which I like most, and you can listen in the whole album that we have more than one this situation that we fly away from the track and go into another atmosphere to come back. This is what I like very much. Absolutely. Otherwise, it would be too boring to always have the same. What was same the story, the telling, and the musicality, you know, and yeah. So he said, okay, when you send me that, give me some time. Unfortunately, I've just bought a little chalet in the Toscana, and we are traveling in March with my wife to repair the house and paint it. But I take my laptop with me and some devices, and believe me, over the months, give me some month. Do you have a deadline? I said, no, we don't. The deadline is nothing what works for us. We are artists, you know. So you must wait until an idea comes. And he said, I have not yet an idea, but it is interesting to me. But believe me, I'm very hard in work with my own promotion of my album and the house. And I give you a call or I give you an email when I have something for you. And that did not work for 6 months. And I waited and asked Peter, what can we do? Maybe. And then he sent me an email, Wolfgang, can we not shift that for the next album? And I said, oh, mind a moment. I'm 77 now. How many albums would you think can I make still? So I'm happy that we have this done. But I want to have you because it's a special theme where I can really imagine that it fits to you. And then I noticed he noticed that there is no deal it must be in this album, you know. And in September, I asked him again after discussing with Peter, what can we do? I cannot push famous artists. He's so much in work with other things. And I don't want to squeeze him for anything, artistic output. And Peter said, you will find your nice words, Wolfgang. I know you. Take a little bit honey to smear it around his mouth. And so, you know, at least I found it took some time to find some nice words for an email to him, asking him. And I got only one sentence back. Well, Wolfgang, don't worry. I'm on. Give me some days. Suddenly, some days only. 2 days later, I got something. And I had to sit on my chair. It was absolutely a complete new track. It was not just the middle part. I can think now, he would not donate us something, a little thing. He knows he works with a Kraftwerker, you know, and he would be something which fits to the whole musical range what we have, because he knows Magazine One. And he loved it, you know. And he said, okay, do with it what you want. And I said, it's wonderful. I don't want to destroy it. I want to keep it in the whole. But from this whole, I have already listened to a special part, which I really cut out and put it into my track. And I sent it also to Peter. And Peter was also saying, wow, is that a good track? And it's unbelievable. And the craziest thing was when I fit it in, which was a little tricky. And Peter helped me, of course, because he's a much better technician than me. And that everything parted with the tact and the tempo. Most was given, but going into that track and coming back out, that was tricky. But it worked, at least. It worked wonderful. And if you go into Global Youth, you will find the point when it goes into Boris Blank's area and then coming back. At the end, again, also in the end, we have the end of his complete track. But I take now the whole track is now on another track which I show live in my show. That is the whole Boris track, and I made a video to it. So it's in my live shows, I bring that global youth video with a complete Boris track for dancing the people and watching the cinema, you know. So that is how we work together with our collaborating artists. It was very similar with Thomas Vangarde.
Before we move on with the interview, just look out for that first interview with Wolfgang Flür I mentioned at the beginning, at the time of Magazine One, and the link's there. Now, don't forget to follow this podcast. There are over 120 interviews to watch already. It's not just a collaboration, the way that Wolfgang just described it, it's very much a support system.
Yeah, and I think it's very important in that sometimes when you're working on things just yourselves, you know, if you open the door a little bit and someone else comes in and puts their slant on things, it can just really inspire you and take everything into an interesting direction. You know, you can get not close-minded, but you know, you can just get so focused and absorbed into something. It's just great to have such interesting artists like Boris and like Thomas, like Peter, all of them artists I have a lot of respect for. So that kind of cross collaborative thing where they listen to what you do and then they provide something, you listen to what they do, and it just bounces back and forth. I think it ultimately is just it's always a good thing, you know. It's very rarely failed for us. So and as Wolfgang said, when the Boris piece arrived, it was just so beautiful. It was almost like, you know, it's almost so perfect and beautiful, but different, you know, something that we wouldn't have come up with. So but it was perfect, and it fitted so well, you know.
Is it the measure of a true artist to be able to achieve this form of collaboration, about how you just mentioned it, about being able to stand back, being able to listen to something and to be able to give and take, in a sense, in terms of new ideas, and then create the best?
Yeah, because songs have a spirit as well, and they have a soul, and they're alive in some way. And when you hear someone see that and hear that and feel it, and then provide something, you know, it's like it's much more than just listening to something and trying to provide something, an audio track. It's understanding what the piece is about, where it's come from, and the, you know, where it's going. And you know, some people just really get that, and it's a really beautiful thing, because you're kind of connecting with them almost on a subliminal level, really. It's like, wow, you know, you really got this and really took the bull by the horns, kind of thing. So they're very nice. They're quite magical moments, really.
Before we get to Thomas Vangarde, I just want to talk about U96 again and HILDEBRANDLIED, because HILDEBRANDLIED is the first poetic verse in German. It's about fate, honor, tragedy, and this father-son relationship that turns into tragedy.
I see, you know it, yeah, to know the story.
Yeah, what appealed to you about that original verse? Because obviously it's part of your history, in a sense. You know, it's something that would have been there in your early years, that made you want to make a song about it.
Yeah, the craziness of this old High German speech, this language, is something which I found so crazy, and I have it in my head since my youth. When I was in the school, we had to learn that when I was 17, I think. Our German teacher, who spoke with us about a period in the Nibelungensage and the HILDEBRANDLIED, was very interesting, that we had to learn it by head. And minimum 4 or 5 strophes, you know, but it's, I think, 16 or 17. It's very long. And since I heard Ik gehorta dat zeggen, dat sich hätten non nur ten Hildebrand and Hadubrand and Herium tuem, that sounds like Latin a little bit, or Old Irish also. It's so strange, but it's German at least. So it's the great-great-great-grandfather of our today's High German language, how we speak today. And I found it so attractive that I learned it new. When I got that special backing from Hayo and from Hayo Leverance, I thought, this is the part. This is fitting, because I tried it several times to do. I had also in mind once, it was nearly very, very near the point that I do it with the backing of the groups. And I spoke with the leader of them, and what is his name? Jürgen Engler. And I was nearly to working with, I needed nearly hard rock or EBM style, because it's fight. It's troops, they fight each other. The troops of the father and the troops of the son, they fight. It's really, you must have the sabres. You hear the sabres dancing, fighting, and the knives and the shouts of the soldiers inside. It's like sabre dance, a modern style of sabre dance. My first album I had, I was crazy about that song, because also that when you heard the soldiers in the deserts when they fight it together, it's very fast, and then comes this romantic melody. You know that. And I wanted to have something in this drama inside. And then with Hario, he gave me something. He did not know what was I thinking of. And then I suddenly had, this is the right one in electronic music. This is fitting. And then he gave me all the stems, and I took some of them out, only 3 or 4, and made a complete new arrangement with them. And then I took my microphone and I got from the internet the original high old German language, and then I translated it that the English understand what's happening, and asked my lovely niece Janine to speak it in the end of the song, what happens. And yeah, I trained for 4 days. I recorded, and I deleted, recorded, and then I took the recording and went to my old, really, believe me, to my old school teacher. He was still living, 86 or so, in Viersen, in the same town where Emil lives, in his house. And we drank coffee and had cakes. And I introduced him to my plan. And I had recorded on a CD, my recording, only the recording. It was not the song, no backing, only my how I spoke it, you know. And he said, Wolfgang, I'm so proud. Can you really remember that? Was it I to give you these lessons? Oh my God, what have I done to you? I said, it's wonderful. You couldn't speak it better. From my view, it's good. Make it if you like it. And then I put it into the arrangement, and then I constructed, or this a melody inside with the strings, something similar like in the sabre dance. The string melody inside does the same, brings the romance and the feeling and the drama inside, besides of the tempo and the fighting sabres, you know.
I mean, Peter, I speak German and I understand German, but it's a very hard guttural language. And when I didn't understand German, it felt very different. It felt, it felt very tough and hard. Mm-hmm. And Wolfgang's voice in this, as he just described, is even sort of making it tougher and harder.
Yes. I wanted to surprise my people, my fans, really a surprise, you know, that I'm always have something that's not normal, you know, but you cannot await. So that is important, that they go into the cinema and they don't see what the next scene is. It must always something that you maybe shriek, you know, and it can be dangerous.
Yeah, we discussed, I mean, Wolfgang obviously explained all the aspects of that story to me over, I've heard it from him a few times, so kind of build that understanding up. But yeah, I understand what you mean. It is very harsh and very, guttural, and in a way, not really fully understanding the words just gives it another dimension, you know. It's kind of interesting.
I could think that the Gothics like it much, the black clothes Gothics, they will like it.
Yeah.
There is a connection, there's a historical connection, and it is, because of Kraftwerk probably, but there's this historical connection between the German language and electronic music. And for me, I think this is one of the standout tracks of the album. Why is there, in terms of sound, Peter, why is there this connection, do you feel?
In terms of sound, with the electronic sound and the German
And the
language.
sound of the language.
Yeah. It's hard. That's a tough one. I mean, it's the sort of thing you could write a thesis on, right? I imagine. It's when I was growing up and I heard the early Kraftwerk records and the early German electronic records, and there was just something uniquely, maybe the otherworldliness of not knowing what the words were, added to it. Because going back to the whole youth thing and the Thatcher era, I think the other kind of generational trauma we all had, people of my generation, was the whole nuclear threat and war and how everything was all of a sudden quite bleak and and your parents were kind of detached in a way because they didn't really understand computers and machines and we were seeing all these things and people were talking in the playground about how like threads and all those things and how the world was going to burn to a crust overnight while you were sleeping. So I think certainly in the UK, this music that sounded very, very stark, but very beautiful and romantic, and with this kind of language that sort of punctuated the music in a really kind of stark way. Um, it just all fit together just perfectly for some reason. It was a real soundtrack, and then obviously it informed the whole electro movement, and then that ended up, with hip hop and all the rest of it. So it was pretty influential globally, obviously. But just speaking for myself, that pure distance between the words and the pronunciation and the harshness of the words really worked along with the music, and I think it did for a lot of people.
I mean, one of the brilliant things about this album as well is sometimes the difference from where of the songs. If we look at Sexerciser, which is also U96, it's sort of very whimsical. It's suddenly there's a very different style of track. Where did this come from, Wolfgang?
It's the difference of the themes, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how can I explain that? They come every day, daily life, I have a newspaper on the Bild-Zeitung, from Germany, and they have a big, on the first page, Montag zum Mond. Montag auf den Mond. I thought, we are just working on a track. I'm a space fan, and we had the track just in work with Peter together. It was originally called Starship Universe. And that was our working title, and I thought, my goodness. And we found out that we were both already on an arrangement which went into different directions. At least we decided we make two versions. And then he made Überall, and I said, okay, then I call my track Monday to the Moon. So it comes by a sudden idea. I read the newspaper. Sometimes the headlines are so good and so crazy. They give you a whole theme sometimes, So I'm a visionary. Sometimes I need only a little finger snip and I have a complete scene, a complete idea for a track. I can already sometimes hear the music already if I have a slogan, And with slogans, I'm fast. And with music and chorus writings, and so that was working. That also all the other tracks come through my daily life, and sometimes by dreams. And I have to get up in the night going to pee, and I have an idea, and I won't go back fast because I'm afraid to lose it. And I take my phone and I speak it in or sing a melody or a lyric or anything. I have recorded it. Then I'm fine. I can sleep again, But and then on the next day, I go to my microphone and sing that melody, or speak the verses or the narrations, or I play the melody with my synthesizer and try to find a good sound. If that doesn't work, I send that one to Peter over. He has much more instruments than me, and he finds the better sound, more fitting. That's how it works, And Peter also says this or that, what at least culminates into a song as a result, I think that is how every musical artist works, You can't plan that. Not really. So I think that was also with Kraftwerk not the case, that they had such a good plan of preparation for an album. So at least sometimes the theme or the the title of an album comes at least when you have all tracks together, then you have an overview under what umbrella that at least fits.
I mean, you mentioned Monday to the Moon, and because it was with Peter Hook of Joy Division and New Order and Thomas Vangarde, but Peter Hook was involved in Blue Monday. So for me, and I think this is where you're very clever, you know, like you look at the title and you find about 3 different reasons to feed into it and never know what the real reason is as a consumer.
You know? That's never occurred to me, actually.
Well, look at Überall. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, with the banned German verse of the national anthem, you know, Über alles.
Yeah, that was also an idea of Markus Luigs, our style police, you know. The track was, as I told you, already called Starship Universe. And I was the first to call my version in another title, so Monday to the Moon. But when Markus heard the song and we recorded this girls' choir in the school of a friend of mine who is a music teacher. So my friend from Australia, who is also a singer, who sings the song Property with a wonderful voice, he is the one to give us the girls in his school. 3 girls sang, and that was Peter's idea. In the middle part, anywhere, he wanted to have something special, a girl who sings something, you know. And then we thought, no, Peter said it could be a chorus, a girls' chorus, or children, better children, but we didn't find children in the chorus. And I asked Robbie, and he said, I have 3 wonderful voices I have in my mind from our school choir. I can ask them. And I went with my car and microphone and my laptop to the school and recorded 3 or 4 times only. They were so talented, so pretty, understood immediately singing in Germany, because they are from an English taught school, at least, but they are an Italian and a Romanian and a Ukrainian girl. They spoke also good German, you know. So that was the good thing. That was the idea to keep them in German.
Another thing to take the song away into a different direction and a different stratosphere for a short while, and it's really dreamy. And they did a really beautiful. It's just really beautiful. Yeah, it's really transportative. That bit, I think.
But when Markus heard that the girls sang in German, and at the least they sang, wir landen überall. Wir landen überall. That was a double meaning. Überall, you know, Steve, that is completely different. They don't know überall ist für uns, das all is space.
Yeah.
Not only all things, you know. And that's the wonderful double meaning. Landen, überall, überall. And then he said, then call the track überall. It's a much better word than this rugged thing, you know. And that is Markus again. So we are really a good group of talented artists who are working together as like in a circus. We are artists. I'm just only the director who knows who has these or that talent. And I ask them for their roles. We make a movie, let us say that, like Fassbender had also his group of talented artists. He knew always who he wanted to ask for the next movie and to engage him, you know, or her. So his group was always the same nearly. And I think it's the same to me now, that I know who I would invite the next time for the next album. Because meanwhile, I know all their talents and their strength in these things. So I would never throw Markus out. Why should I? We know us since 23 years, you know. So I know what he is important for. And when we have questions about formal things, we ask them together. Mostly we have a nice dinner before, and then some drinks, and then the ideas flow and flow.
I mean, mentioning words and lyrics, for me, it's always fascinating when there's another layer. And then, of course, you know, you see more and more. In terms of music, Peter, is it also the way that you work to create more and more layers. You know, when you listen to a piece of music and then you listen to it again and then you discover something else and you listen to it again. And this is what makes, for me, often makes amazing music, because you're discovering things along the way. Just breaking in again to ask you to follow and check out the other interviews. Go to popthehistorymakers.com, use the drop-down menu, and you'll find such great interviews, and there's sure to be something that you like there. Now, let's get back to that interview.
It's good that you say that, and a lot of people have said that about the last record, and hopefully we'll say that about this record. But there's a huge amount of love and spirit and work and hours that go into all these songs. And I'm like you know, and I think Wolfgang, we're the same. It's like you want something to keep revealing different aspects of itself, depending on how you're approaching your day. You might hear a song in a different way. And I think the way we approach writing together naturally lends itself to the songs becoming multi-layered like that. I personally love that more than anything when a reviewer or someone says, "Oh, I was listening to this again. I've never heard this little bit in it," and it just, you know, that's a really lovely thing. To keep discovering those things and to understand all the passion that kind of went into them, really.
Some of the tracks, like sometimes like a wonder how they develop from the start and change completely during the work. And as you said, with the different layers, we have developed the melodies completely different, then change them in between or add something when suddenly a genius idea comes over and say, look how good that comes or takes over this melody into the other. How does it flow into that? You cannot plan that. This is the wonderful thing what happens to artists with their sensibility and with their fine art working and thinking and feeling. Suddenly you get something from above and you say, thank you, thank you. It gives us these presents which make me and Peter really happy on such a day.
And the real discipline then comes from knowing when it's finished and to stop and to not change something that, you know, especially with the way we work. And as we said, there's no deadline. So, you know, some of these songs could have been on the go for quite a long time, and you might come back to something after a year or two, but knowing what was so special about it in the first place is important to then not disturb it because you've heard it so much, you know.
Yeah, you remember it was already planned with Sherry Red to bring the album out in September last year, and then we were still working on another song and another song, and then we had Global Youth working and with waited on Boris Blank's contribution. So we said we cannot bring it now, so maybe in spring. So now at least we were finished then, and we can hold the time of the 28th.
I mean, you mentioned things like, you know, things come to you. It's almost, you know, somehow like I don't want to say a religious experience, but it's in the air and it comes to you at the right time. In a sense, with Thomas Vangarde or Thomas Bangalter from Daft Punk getting in touch with you and asking for a signed copy of magazine One is also one of these gifts in a way. Were you a fan of Daft Punk, Wolfgang, or what connection did you have?
Always. I was always a fan of their music because I was not, we were, I think also in Kraftwerk, some of the former colleagues were very furious about their music. They bring this strength, this power, and this is such a modern dance. It's not rave dance, you know. I don't like everything is for dancing, but they are really touching and packing you to go to the dance floor with this kind of music. It's intelligent. I did not know much about Thomas, that he is a complete trained music like collaborators, you know. So he studied that, so he can write notes, and he writes also music for operas and ballets in Paris. When I met him the first time we spoke about that, he said, at the moment I have not much time because I'm writing partiture for a ballad. And I said, oh, you are big underway. But he said, I don't want to make dance music anymore. So that's why we split. We had enough of that, you know. And then they made this crazy movie where they exploded the Daft Punk idea in the deserts with the helmets on, with a big, it's typical American, everything explodes in the end, you know. So he was very happy with my album because he's a collector of signed albums. He wanted absolutely with my signature on. And when he had the album, he spoke again to me, and what are you doing at the moment? And I said, I'm working with my partner on a new album. And at the moment, we are on a track because I like space. I said, I'm a space fan too, Wolfgang, very much. And I said, haha, and that, and that, and this, and that. And I said, you want to join us? I said, absolute. That would be my next question. Can we do something? And I said, maybe we make a new part in the middle, the Thomas Vangarde part. We wouldn't call it Daft Punk. We would call it the Thomas. And then he explained me he didn't want to be called Thomas Vanguard for the future. It has something familiar story. I don't know it. So it's no problem. If you like to be Vanguard, then you are Vanguard. Why not? I need not the Vanguard, I need the music. Have you an idea? I said, I have one in my head. It's done. But I would think you will like it. It was never released. It's a little part, but I'm sure it fits to you. And he sent it to me. I thought, oh my God, what is that? It was wonderful tones. It was space. It was really spacey. It was gas inside. It was little comets working together, and everything, planets were meeting together, and a whole scene, a story opened this little part in me. And I sent it to Peter and I said, wow, how can we use that? Nothing could happen. Not the tempo, not the tonality. Everything was wrong to us. But here comes the talent of Peter. He made the complete part fitting to that what we already had. So especially tempo and tonality, and
amazing what you can do these days with technology.
Yeah, Peter takes hours for such things, you know. And the good thing is that I know that he can do it. So he resolves the problems, you know. So the solution. Anyhow, it worked very well. And then came the next wonder when Peter had also invited Peter Hook again with his highline bass guitar, and he played a wonderful bass line, and that fitted also into that part of Thomas Vangarde. And I couldn't sing. Oh my goodness, how thankful am I? What happened to me? So many famous artists have no problem to working with the former drummer boy of Kraftwerk, you know. What is happening with me? Whom I invite says yes. So maybe what's going on from me, from out, that I always say yes. Wolfgang, I would be proud. It's an honor to me. And so it's an honor to me as well. That comes back also from me when I admire working with them. And that was wonderful. And then he said, oh, Peter Hook's bass is in. I have never thought about that. A Daft Punk musician and Peter Hook from New Order will have a contribution in one song together. And it's wonderful fitting. Unbelievable.
I think Peter and I know exactly why people want to work with Wolfgang, because in terms of, you know, your history, these are people who are all absolutely influenced by your history.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think in a sense, I know maybe you want to downplay it, but you know, you are part of something which is immense, and you're still going on with this, which makes it even better, I think.
Of course, do I know a little bit of that too, and I cannot put that aside. I know Kraftwerk is a springboard, or how they call it, Sprungbrett, something, jumping board. It opens the one or other door, of course. You know that, Steve. We already spoke the last time about that. But it can also be a stigma, you know that. It's because I'm always again these competitions. They always wait and they are so waiting for a Kraftwerk album, which never comes. And so that's with a microscope, they watch every song. If there is a little bit Kraftwerk inside, you know, and does it sound like Kraftwerk? Was one of the first reviews which I got from Future Music then back in 1997 when the Tampa album. And that was the first bigger review on me. I can remember, I had already the cover on that. What was that called? The human part of Kraftwerk is gone. So he is I can't remember completely. The human is gone and the human heart is there, or anything like that. Wolfgang has reserved on his new album. And but the first sentence was, and, comma, does it sound like Kraftwerk? So we have to report about that. We have to detect something inside. And then became a big report on the review. But I had that pretty often also in the last records when the magazine one came out, or even the earlier Eloquence, that journalists are trying to find, or even the fans when they write their comments on Facebook or on Instagram, and they said, I have heard a little bit Kraftwerk, Wolfgang. Go on 3.18. From there and 3.28. That's completely got. That's from that song. It sounds like that song or that song from Kraftwerk. Brilliant, brilliant. They are happy then. They are really happy then.
You can neither like try and suppress it or try and encourage it, because either way that's going to produce something that's not authentic. So Wolfgang was in Kraftwerk, and obviously there's going to be elements of that come out in the music, and we've all listened to Kraftwerk. We're all inspired by things we hear over our lives. So one thing, I mean there's a clamor obviously amongst Kraftwerk fans to have a new record that sounds like Kraftwerk, and everything is microscopically reviewed, like Wolfgang says, but it would never be very good, would it?
Yeah, but anyway, they don't know me about my musicality, because in Kraftwerk I did not write any note. I did not write music, not melodies. I did not write lyrics. So I was only the drummer. That is handicraft, and it cannot be enough that I was a Kraftwerk member. So they cannot have any idea about the musician in Wolfgang, because I myself didn't know that back then, what power and what talents were sleeping in me. So that was so good with this jump board to go away and making 10 years nothing with music, completely different things. And when I found back to music, which Steve Blaine knew, which started on the music fair, on the Popcorn fair in, I think it was 1993 or something like that, with the Little Child Project, when I found myself working the first music writing, melodies developing, and lyrics. And from then I started with something. 4 years later, I had my first album contract. You can only compare with them, but not with the Kraftwerk time. So they cannot have an idea. Then it's really only this, I want to work with a former Kraftwerker. And then it is good that I developed that they could find out that I developed an own style of this storyteller wrapped in music. That is my style.
I mean, one of the hidden talents, and maybe I can ask Peter this really, one of the hidden talents is, of course, now singing. So how has Wolfgang's confidence grown in singing, and how instrumental were you in getting him? I know this is from Magazine One as well, but how instrumental were you in getting him to sing?
I don't know how influential I was, but I'm always pushing Wolfgang to sing more, because I think his voice is really interesting, and it's really great, and because the ideas are coming from him, and some of the melodies that come from Wolfgang are really just so beautiful, it just seems a natural extension to then sing as well and add that dimension to the song. So nothing's forced, like I say, and Wolfgang will do what Wolfgang does because he's an artist as well, but if he ever asks me my opinion, I will always say, oh, you should try singing there. I think that would really help transform this song. I mean, why get someone else to sing it?
I mean, maybe, Wolfgang, we can talk in terms of the track times, because Victoria Port was also on Magazine One, on Night Drive, I think, and the blend of voices was really lovely. And I think that this title track times also has that.
Mm. Yeah, it comes from my heart. I fell in love with her voice on Night Drive. Then I asked Peter, "Who is this girl?" And he said, she's called Victoria Ford, and she's part of Peter. Who was the other one?
Anushka with Max Wheeler, yeah.
Max Wheeler. Max Wheeler brought us a little soundtrack where she was already on with Night Drive, where she couldn't believe the drive at 4 o'clock in the night. And I found that so crazy to tell my own story driving in the night with my former band to Paris and for a concert in the Olympia Theater. However, since that time, I thought on her voice to include her more in the next album, and we had that chance on different parts in this album again, more and more. And I like that much. And I think Victoria is a good find to us. We are pretty friendly with each other meanwhile, and we meet in London sometimes when we play there, or we maybe invite her for dinner or lunch, maybe. However, yeah, it's very good. She sings completely what I have in mind, and it's easy working with her. I sing it into my microphone and said that she has the melody, and she gives a day later I become three different versions, and yeah, I mean I can choose, and then I say, can you sing with less vibrations in the end? I don't like singers who have too much vibrations. So that's too arty, too much opera or so, And she can absolutely do that. That's not that hurts her when I asked to sing that in that style or in this style. So at least I'm the director. And when I say that, not as harsh guy, but I must say what I want, what I think is better for the song. And she always agrees afterwards when she heard how when we have included her in the past, and she said, "Now I understand better, Wolfgang. It's brilliant." And yeah, it's the same like we have since many days more, since many years more, the Miriam Suarez inside singing the Spanish singer. She has also a wonderful voice, but she has a little bit disappeared. I cannot find her anymore. She does not answer, and we don't know where she lives. Maybe she went back to Spain, and so I'm so happy to have another singer with Victoria, and she's in London, and she's absolutely reachable and always open for something.
Mentioned earlier about all these pioneers that are involved in collaborations in this album. The ones people haven't mentioned yet, Juan Atkins, of course, who was the instigator of Detroit techno, got Fabrice Lig, who's the Belgian techno artist, Anthony Rother, who's sort of the mix between human and machines in his music. Newman, are they from Frankfurt? I've got to do a bit of research into that. Newman in Frankfurt. And one track I haven't mentioned is Magazine. So maybe we can just quickly go through those because I know we're running long over at the moment. In terms of those artists, Peter, maybe let's just start with the instigator of Detroit techno, Juan Atkins. For you, what does it mean to be, to have someone like that on this album?
I mean, it's very important, and Juan. I mean, the stuff he was doing back in the early '80s with Model 500 and Cybertron were just that was always music that just blew my mind. It's like it came from some distant galaxy somewhere in the future, and it still sounds like that to me. When I listen to Clear by Cybertron, it sounds like that. So I mean, Juan's obviously he was obviously inspired by Wolfgang's former band Kraftwerk, and that whole cross-cultural thing I always found really fascinating, and how it informed dance and electronic music over there. And but yeah, I think I've always found Juan's work really, really interesting. I like his approach. I like the way he took that sound and made it slightly funky and electro-y. And yeah, we did a we he did a show a few years ago now at the Barbican, right, Wolfgang, about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years. And we met up with him after the show, and it was a fantastic show. He played all the original Cybertron stuff. He reworked some of it. Um, and it was just a really nice moment because he's got so many ideas. He's so interesting, and his back catalogue is so fascinating, and he's contributed so much. So in that sense, it's always, it's always a pleasure to work with him.
And this track, Posh, I mean, Posh, it's funny because it means expensive and attractive if you look up a dictionary of what word posh means. But definitely, I think, saying this is my English background, it has a very negative connotation if you don't come from the posh part of society.
Mm. Yeah, so Posh was I mean, that was an idea that came up on the road. I think we were traveling. Were we traveling when we came up with that idea, Wolfgang? I think we were.
Aberdeen. We came
Yeah,
from Aberdeen, and
Aberdeen. Yeah.
yeah, we came from Aberdeen on the way with a rental car. We were driven with the driver to Edinburgh. And I got a WhatsApp from Juan. We are meanwhile on WhatsApp, and we had already waited for 6 months also, the same length, the same time. He was pretty lazy, I would say, when he promised me to speak to record this special bass line again, because he had it is from the track 10 song, and I was so going for this bass line separated from the track 10 song to have it alone. And he said, why would do you want that? And he was a little bit nervous about, why do you always asking for that? And I said, because it's so brutal, arrogant, and so good. I have an idea about it. And I did not already know what idea it was, but I have, as I said, as a visionary, I just want to have it to play a little bit with this bass line. And then he said, we have recorded that in the 80s with an ADAT machine, and it does not work anymore. So the cartridge put in, and it does not work. But I play it new for you. I can remember the instruments which I used then, and it needed half a year. And it was especially on that drive from Aberdeen to Edinburgh when I got this. Yeah, there was an MP3 file on, and he asked, like this? Is it like this? He's very little with words. It's only 3 or 4 words we writes always. And I said, yes, that's correct. And if you already play that, can you maybe, if you are already on, send us some variations? Okay, he said, okay. Then he sent us 2 or 3 variations. And we used one of them as in the Billionaire on the Magazine 1 album. And the second, the original one, which I wanted, we had spared that, and we were already working on Posh. Because on that drive, when we heard it, one of us, I don't remember, Peter or I was, who said, it sounds so posh. And we know a girl, a special girl, she is really posh. And then we said, okay, then let's make a song on Posh Girls of London. With this bass bar, not responsible for anything, just rich them, just money card and anything, And Markus made a very, very good video from it for the single, and we bring it out on the single will be out with a video on next Tuesday, on the 6th. We will publish it on all channels. So my label will publish it, the Posh single and video, and we put it also on Facebook and Instagram.
One of the things that you've said in the past, and I wonder from Peter's perspective as well, that when you finish an album, there's a feeling of not knowing what to do. So we are at that stage. The album's been ready a while. You're just waiting for the release. And I just wonder what feelings you both have, Peter.
It's quite a nice feeling, really, because the last 5% of working on an album does take an inordinate amount of time, just finalizing bits and pieces. And in a sense, it's still creative, but it's not the fun creative bit of writing and, coming up with ideas. So it's nice that you have a cutoff. It's a very definite thing that the album is now finished and can be viewed and almost enjoyed like anyone else can enjoy it, So it's quite a nice feeling. And then also it opens up a whole space to start working on new things. So I quite like this period really, where you can say it's done, you know, it will be, just leave it to go through the machine now of being released and everything. So for me, it's a really nice feeling.
I'm completely different. I mostly fall into a deep hole. Everything is so empty suddenly. But fortunately, I'm a good home worker, and let us say, a houseman. I don't know the word in English. I do a lot of things in our house, in our flats where I live with my wife. Suhal is Turkish, and she's as home worker, home is, man sagt man, Heimarbeit, home office, and I'm the cook at home. I like to cook, so I have a lot of other things to do. So there is no boredom or so. But when the album is done and we have wait for the release, we have a lot of time and a lot of work for all these advertising things, giving interviews and Zoom talks. I write email interviews and lots of requests. You can believe it's nearly 30 meanwhile. And we make the 12th Zoom today with you. You are the 12th. Can you believe that? And at least also preparing for the live things we do. These start also in April. I love to be on stage, and Peter too, to have him with us. We always go together on the stage. Peter makes such a good opening that the people like his tunes, his music, his videos as much as which I follow 5 minutes later. So we fit very good together. So it is a good preparation. So his music is more the intellectual style, and I'm the entertainer afterwards. And we bring a short version of Say No in the beginning of all, with a very attractive and a very, I would say, very hard video we have prepared for it. So it comes first, comes the statement, and then comes the entertainment. So preparing all of these things, and I renewed all my videos now the last weeks. It was a lot of work, I can say, and we have prepared 2 new videos as well. So this one from Markus for Posh, and for Global Youth I did myself. So I also I'm pretty good working on videos cutting with my video programs, and so I learned a lot to do myself, but I also need my specialists, you know, and I have plenty of them. And to say it at least, without Peter, it would not make fun anymore. I would not make any album anymore. He's my brother, and he's the best music partner I can think and hope for.
God, what wonderful words to end with. Wolfgang Flür, Peter Duggal. First of all, congratulations on creating such a wonderful piece of art. I mean, it's a really fantastic album, and I wish you all the success you could possibly have with Times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Up there is an interview I recommend. Down there is where you can find all the podcast interviews. And here is where you can connect.